Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about what classes I recommend new players to play in Blade and Soul. So the first recommendation that I always give players is you need to identify whether you want to play a range class or a melee class. Understand that range classes are a lot easier than melee classes in Blade and Soul. The main reason is because you can stand at range at 14 meters, 16 meters and just shoot the boss in a safe distance. So you can avoid a lot of mechanics and you can avoid a lot of damage or attack rotations just by standing far away from the boss or far away from the mobs. If you do like to learn mechanics and you do like to learn boss rotations and tank things and be in the middle of the battle, then a melee class would be best for you. If you like to attack things from a safe distance, then I would suggest a range class. So I'll start off with the range classes first. So for the range classes, there are two classes that I recommend all new players. One is the Summoner. So why do I recommend the Summoner? It's mainly because the Summoner has a cat or a familiar. You can spec Cat Taunt, which will allow it to tank for you. So your entire leveling process is extremely easy because you have a cat that can tank for you and you can just attack safely from a distance and kill everything. You can do all the solo content relatively easy with the Summoner, with an exception of Master Hong, which is a very late game solo dungeon. That's the only exception. Other than that, the rest of the content, solo content, is relatively easy on the Summoner. The second class that I would recommend is the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger is extremely simple as well. It's mainly just very heavily favoring your damage at the sacrifice of some utility. So the Gunner's main role, especially in raids, are really just to do a lot of damage. And you're not really required to do too many mechanics until the much later raids, such as Twilight Temple. The Gunner is a very good choice, especially since you don't have to know too many mechanics and your main job is just to kill the boss before you have to do anything. A lot of people like to play the Gunslinger, mainly because it's not very mech heavy. It's just DPS, kill the thing before you have to do anything. So these two classes are my first recommendations. It's the Summoner and the Gunslinger, and I happen to play both of them. They're both my mains. And if you want to go the melee route, I definitely do recommend the Warden. For the Warden, you have to be either a Jin, which is the human race, or a Gon. However, in the coming patches, pretty soon you will be able to roll a Lin Warden. So you can roll that in the future, not yet. Probably in December or in early 2019. So why do I recommend the Warden? Is because the Warden's a very easy class to play. When you're tanking a boss, usually a lot of people have to learn attack rotations. The main reason why you have to learn attack rotations is because you need to know when to block if the boss is going to knock you down or knock you back or knock you up, and you need to avoid certain attacks that CC you. However, the Warden doesn't have to care about any of that. The main reason is because they have a skill called Blade Ward. When you press your V skill, which is Blade Ward, you're immune to all CC, as long as you're continuously hitting the target which is CCing you. So Wardens make for a very good tank. This is why I recommend a lot of new players to try out the Warden, and it is a little bit strong right now. However, there are a couple nerfs coming to this class. So let's say, you want to future-proof yourself and you don't want to play the flavor of the month or the overpowered class. Another class that I would recommend is the Blade Master or the Kung Fu Master. The reason why I recommend these two classes is because there are not many players in the game that know how to play tanks. Playing as a tank does require you to learn boss rotations. However, when you're playing a melee class, you essentially have to learn boss rotations anyway in order to dodge and avoid attacks. So being a Blade Master or a Kung Fu Master or a Warden allows you to tank easier. Your entire kit is revolved around tanking. So that's why I recommend these three classes. And don't be worried that just because I say the word tanking does not mean that you deal low DPS. All three classes over here, the Warden, the Blade Master, and the Kung Fu Master, deal decent damage. They're not the top DPS. The top DPSs are mainly going to be the range classes because they're the squishies and they're considered the DPS classes, such as the Gunslinger is a DPS class and the Force Master is also a DPS class. So this is essentially like your AD carry and your mage classes. So it's kind of like that if you've ever played League of Legends. So here's the TLDR. The classes that I would recommend for range players is number 1, Summoner, number 2, Gunslinger. If you don't like any of those classes, I can also recommend the Force Master. These 3 classes are relatively simple to play, relatively strong, and they're good classes to play because they're required in every raid, they're required in a party composition, and they just offer good damage or good utility. For the melee classes, my recommendations would be the Warden, the Blade Master, and the Kung Fu Master. These 3 are probably the best to play as melee classes. However, the easiest will be the Warden, followed by the Blade Master, and finally the Kung Fu Master. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, I hope this video helped. If it did, I would appreciate a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
What can I say except you're welcome for the heals, the boosts, the